Did you know there is a plant in the Amazon rainforest capable of completely shutting down the human brain's perception of time, making 10 minutes feel like a literal eternity? Or that a common garden flower contains a substance so violent it can completely erase a person's free will in a matter of seconds? Welcome to Nature's Top 10. Today, the 10 most powerful and unsettling hallucinogenic plants in nature. Our countdown begins on the hillsides and gardens of South America, where an ornamental trumpet-shaped flower conceals one of the most dangerous chemical weapons in flora, the angel's trumpet. Every single part of this plant, from the flowers and leaves to the stem and seeds, is highly psychoactive. The secret lies in its high concentration of scopolamine, a toxin that serves as a natural defense against predators. When absorbed by humans, whether through ingestion or even excessive touch, it temporarily blocks neurotransmitters responsible for memory and decision-making. In tightly controlled microdoses, science utilizes this toxin in medicine to treat severe motion sickness and spasms. However, in raw and illicit doses, it shuts down free will, triggering terrifying hallucinations and severe amnesia. Because of this, purified extracts of the plant are tragically used in criminal rings to execute scams, as the victim follows commands without a single shred of resistance. It is a plant with incredibly high lethal potential. An overdose causes muscular paralysis, cardiac arrest, and death within hours. But while the angel's trumpet shuts down free will through a beautiful garden flower, our number 9, hidden inside a cactus in the arid zones of Mexico, attacks the brain in a completely opposite way. It doesn't erase the mind, it overloads the visual cortex with a flood of mathematical colors and geometric visions that last for over 12 consecutive hours.
Crossing the border into the arid regions of Mexico and the southern United States, we find peyote, a small spineless cactus that grows close to the ground. This plant's defense mechanism against desert predators is the production of mescaline, an extremely potent hallucinogenic alkaloid concentrated in the buttons or crowns on the cactus's surface, which are sliced and chewed or brewed into tea. When consumed by humans, mescaline binds to serotonin receptors in the brain, severely altering the visual cortex. The effect triggers pure synesthesia. A person literally sees sounds and hears colors through mathematical and geometric hallucinations that last for over 12 hours. Although its traditional and religious use is legally protected for indigenous tribes in spiritual rituals, peyote is widely consumed for recreational purposes in the global underground market, despite being strictly illegal. While used in experimental psychiatry to study the human mind, unregulated consumption is highly dangerous. An overdose can cause respiratory failure, irreversible psychotic breaks, and cardiac arrest. But while this Mexican cactus overloads the eyes with colors and geometry for 12 hours, our number 8, extracted from a vine deep within the Amazon rainforest, breaks through the barriers of the mind in a much deeper way. Known as the vine of the dead, it forces the brain to relive past traumas in a spiritual journey that begins with a violent physical purge.
Deep within the Amazon rainforest, number 8 on our list is not a single plant, but the fusion of 2 distinct species, the ayahuasca vine and the leaves of the chacrona shrub. Alone, neither of them triggers any brain effects. The chemical engineering behind this mixture is brilliant. Chacrona contains DMT, a powerful hallucinogen that our stomach enzymes normally destroy. The vine steps in to block those enzymes, allowing the DMT to travel intact to the central nervous system through a boiled brew. Upon hitting the brain, ayahuasca shuts down the standard perception of time and space, turning minutes into days. The experience begins with a violent physical purge, severe vomiting and diarrhea that traditional cultures view as a spiritual cleansing. While medicine studies its compounds to treat severe depression, raw recreational consumption is highly dangerous. It can trigger chronic psychotic breaks, severe panic attacks, and fatal cardiac arrhythmias. But while ayahuasca demands hours of boiling and a physical purge to open the mind in the jungle, our number 7, hidden inside a low-growing plant from Europe and Asia, does the opposite. Its seeds contain a toxin that quietly slips into the brain, turning terrifying nightmares into ultra-realistic hallucinations that strip away a person's ability to tell reality from fantasy.
Easily found in vacant lots and pastures across Europe, the Americas, and Asia, Jimson weed is a common-looking plant with extreme lethality. Its biological defense mode is the production of highly toxic alkaloids, such as atropine and scopolamine. These substances are concentrated throughout the entire plant, but reach devastating potency within its seeds, which are protected inside thorny, spiked capsules. When consumed by humans, usually through ingesting the seeds or brewing a tea from its leaves, Jimson weed blocks the central nervous system, inducing a state of absolute delirium. Unlike other hallucinogens, a person completely loses the ability to distinguish hallucinations from reality, interacting with non-existent objects and people within literal nightmare scenarios. Historically, science isolated its compounds in medicine to create treatments for asthma and spasms, but its illicit recreational use is a game of Russian roulette. The line between a hallucinogenic dose and a lethal dose is razor thin. Illegal recreational consumption frequently results in temporary blindness, kidney failure, coma, and death from severe hyperthermia. But while Jimson weed creates terrifying delirium through poisonous seeds in common pastures, our number 6 takes us back to the forests of South America. It is considered one of the planet's ultimate botanical relics, a plant whose leaves contain a compound that alters dopamine levels in the brain to the point of generating instant artificial euphoria, but which demands a devastating biological price in less than an hour.
Across the slopes of the Andes Mountains and the basins of the Amazon rainforest, number 6 on our list is a shrub whose chemical properties altered the course of human history, coca. This plant's survival mechanism against insects and pests relies on the production of cocaine, a highly stimulant and psychoactive alkaloid heavily concentrated inside its green leaves. When consumed in its natural state by traditional indigenous communities through chewing the leaves with alkaline ashes, the plant releases minute doses of the compound, serving as a legitimate medicinal remedy to combat fatigue, hunger, and altitude sickness. However, once science isolated this alkaloid in laboratories and the underground market began to chemically refine it for illicit recreational consumption, the substance transformed into one of the most devastating drugs on the planet. Inside the brain, it hijacks the reward system, flooding neurons with dopamine and generating an instant artificial euphoria. The biological price of this abuse is catastrophic. Recreational consumption destroys brain receptors, triggering severe chemical dependency, severe paranoia, cardiovascular collapse, and death by overdose within minutes. But while the leaves of this Andean shrub accelerate the central nervous system to the brink of collapse, our number 5 takes us to the savannas and rainforests of West Africa. There, a climbing vine produces seeds containing a toxin that does the exact opposite. It slows the entire organism down, inducing a deep trance state where users claim to visualize their own heartbeats stopping.
Traveling into the rainforests of Central Africa, we find iboga, a shrub whose survival mode against predators generated one of the most intriguing chemical compounds in biology, ibogaine. This highly psychoactive substance is heavily concentrated within the bark of the plant's roots, which are scraped and ground into a bitter, extremely potent powder. When consumed by humans, ibogaine attacks multiple brain receptors simultaneously, drastically slowing down both heart and respiratory rates. The user enters a state of absolute trance that can last up to 36 hours, defined by vivid, realistic hallucinations, where the mind forces the individual to relive forgotten memories since infancy. In medicine, science utilizes this substance in advanced rehabilitation clinics, as it possesses the unique ability to reset dopamine receptors, effectively eliminating withdrawal symptoms from hard drugs. However, illicit recreational consumption in global underground parties or secret circles is a highly dangerous practice. Because the substance directly interferes with the heart's electrical pathways, unmonitored usage frequently causes severe arrhythmias, seizures, and fatal cardiac arrest. But while iboga's roots demand a 36-hour trance to reconfigure the brain's circuitry, our number 4, found within a native plant of Southeast Asia, acts as a chemical chameleon inside the human body. Its leaves contain a substance that can either accelerate your entire organism or completely sedate it, depending entirely on the amount of leaves you consume.
Within the swamps and tropical rainforests of Southeast Asia, primarily in Thailand and Indonesia, grows kratom, a large tree belonging to the same family as coffee. This plant's defense mechanism relies on the production of mitragynine, a complex alkaloid concentrated inside its green leaves. The chemical engineering of this substance is unique. In low doses, it acts as a powerful stimulant, but in high doses, it binds directly to the brain's opioid receptors, functioning as a potent sedative. Historically, local laborers chewed its fresh leaves to endure grueling workdays under the blazing sun. In modern medicine, science studies its compounds as a potential alternative for chronic pain management and to assist patients transitioning away from opioid addiction. However, kratom became a massive trend in the Western illicit recreational market, where the powder from its seeds and dried leaves is consumed unpredictably. This unregulated use hides a terrifying biological danger. Kratom triggers a severe chemical dependency identical to morphine. Continuous abuse or overdose results in severe respiratory depression, destructive hepatotoxicity in the liver, psychotic hallucinations, and death by respiratory arrest. But while kratom deceives the brain by acting as a stimulant and sedative chameleon through its leaves, our number 3 takes us to the mountainous regions of Mexico. There, a low-growing plant from the mint family conceals the most potent natural hallucinogen ever discovered by mankind. A single inhalation of its leaves shatters three-dimensional reality in less than 30 seconds.
Hidden within the isolated, humid cloud forests of the Sierra Mazateca in Mexico, Salvia divinorum is a low-growing plant from the mint family that holds a terrifying title. It conceals the most potent natural hallucinogen on the planet. This plant's defense mechanism relies on the production of salvinorin A, an ultra-concentrated chemical compound found within its green leaves. Unlike almost every other plant on our list, this substance is not an alkaloid and does not bind to serotonin receptors. It targets kappa-opioid receptors, which regulate our perception of pain and physical reality itself. When consumed by humans, usually through burning and inhaling its dried leaves in underground recreational markets, salvinorin A shatters three-dimensional perception in less than 30 seconds. The user instantly loses awareness of their own body, frequently reporting visions of turning into inanimate objects or being pulled by two-dimensional gravitational forces during a trip that lasts roughly 15 minutes but feels like an eternity. While science studies its compounds in neurobiology to map the mechanisms of schizophrenia and chronic pain, its illicit recreational use is highly dangerous. The mental impact is so violent that it frequently triggers extreme panic, severe spatial disorientation leading to fatal accidents, and acute psychotic breaks. But while salvia rips the mind out of reality in 30 seconds through dense smoke, our number 2 operates a silent destruction that begins right in the digestive system. It is one of the most widely cultivated plants in the world today, consumed by billions of people daily in microdoses, yet very few know that its pure extract is a neurotoxin so violent that a single concentrated drop on the skin can paralyze an adult's nervous system.
Originally native to the Americas, tobacco is now one of the most widely cultivated and profitable plants on Earth, consumed daily by billions. This plant's natural defense mechanism against insects and predators is the production of nicotine, an alkaloid that acts as a powerful neurotoxin, heavily concentrated within its green leaves. When consumed recreationally in mass through cigarettes, a multi-billion-dollar market, though strictly regulated and prohibited for minors, nicotine is inhaled in microdoses, binding to acetylcholine receptors in the brain to release dopamine and induce a highly addictive artificial relaxation. In medicine, science isolated the substance to create nicotine replacement therapies and studies its compounds for treating neurodegenerative diseases like Alzheimer's. However, the plant's pure extract hides a terrifying lethal potential. Pure nicotine is a poison so violent that just 60 milligrams, the equivalent of a few drops applied directly onto the skin, is enough to fully paralyze the central nervous system, causing seizures, respiratory muscle failure, and death by asphyxiation within minutes. But while tobacco utilizes a silent neurotoxin to hook billions of people worldwide through smoke, our absolute number 1 spot is the most consumed, debated, and controversial psychoactive plant in human history. Its chemical compounds mimic substances produced by our own bodies, unlocking a dual world of medicine and hallucinogenic effects that moves billions of dollars across both legal and underground markets.
The absolute number 1 spot on our list belongs to the most popular, debated, and controversial psychoactive plant in human history, cannabis. This plant's defense mechanism against solar radiation and predators relies on the production of a dense resin heavily concentrated within the flowers of the female plants.
This resin carries over 100 phytocannabinoids, most notably THC, the compound responsible for the hallucinogenic effects, and CBD. The biological engineering of this plant inside the human body is fascinating. These cannabinoids perfectly mimic substances that our own organisms already produce naturally. When consumed recreationally, usually by inhaling the smoke of its dried flowers, a habit prohibited in most of the world, but undergoing a massive wave of legalization, THC invades the brain's endocannabinoid system, altering memory, motor coordination, and time perception, triggering everything from euphoria to visual and auditory distortions. In medicine, science utilizes its purified extracts to treat refractory epilepsy, chronic pain, and spasms from multiple sclerosis. While it does not possess a lethal potential by physical overdose like other plants on this list, its unregulated consumption hides severe biological risks. Continuous abuse can trigger chronic psychotic episodes in predisposed minds, alongside acute anxiety and long-term cognitive impairment. So, which of these hallucinogenic plants did you find the most unsettling of all? Leave it here in the comments. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to Nature's Top 10 so you don't miss the next most bizarre mechanisms in nature. See you next time.